Well, welcome to Ravensdale Bible Academy. Today's course is Fake News from our Think Again Christian series. And today's specific lesson is generalization. Now, generalization is another form of fake news. Just as the word says, it's the idea of, well, in general or basically, ... And so you have to be careful in over generalizing or oversimplifying statements, because they can be misrepresented. So I'll give you an example. When we make general statements like all politicians are corrupt, well, not all of them are corrupt. Many of them are corrupt, but not all of them. Or people will say all Christians are narrow-minded. Well, maybe that person knows two people, and those two people are narrow-minded. So that's a very small sample, a very narrow view. Oftentimes when people say generalization, they'll add the phrase before it, hasty. You're being hasty. You're being too quick in your judgment, because generalization is basically a claim that's based on evidence that's just too small. The sample size is too small. And so we don't want you to draw conclusions based on just a little bit of evidence or partial evidence. Behind me, you'll see the poster, and you see, Aristotle and Socrates, and they're the foundation of, our Western thought, the Socratic method, the Aristotelian method. And so these are ways that we study. These are ways that we want to, learn and grow. And, what they would do is you would have the Socratic method of, one person makes a statement, another one asks a question, rebuttal. We get our debates from kind of the Socratic method, classroom settings, the Harkness tables, Socratic method. The idea is that we don't want to generalize a topic. What we want to do is dig, ask, and study. 2 Timothy 2:15, is encourage us that we're to study God's word, to show thyself approved as workmen. We're supposed to grind through the scriptures, not just, take one verse and misapply it to, a life application. Well, fake news can be fake when you just use a general statement. If you just use one tiny piece of evidence. An example is, if my brother likes to eat a lot of pizza and he eats a lot of French fries and he's perfectly healthy and in great shape, well, generally speaking, then eating pizza and eating French fries is good for you and healthy. Well, it might be true for my brother, but that's probably not going to be true for most people. So what are some examples that we see? We'll see comparisons. Dogs are smarter than cats, and that's a general statement. Sometimes we make statements that are general, they're just accepted. The news does this all the time. They throw out these statements, these general statements that are just, well, that's just true, that Republicans just care about money. That's all they care about. And Democrats, really care about people. Those are generalizations. Cats are just as smart as dogs, and dogs can do amazing things too. So who knows? We see an example here where a news outlet, Time magazine, very respected magazine, well known for great articles. And, here's the assumption here, those Asian American whiz kids, the assumption there is, well, I guess if you're just born Asian, then you're smart. Well, that's just an overgeneralization. And really as an athlete, I don't like those statements, because I know how much work I had to put into athletics, and I know how much work that these kids, as a former superintendent of a school district, the smartest kids are the hardest working kids too. They don't just roll out of bed and get A's on their test by not studying, by not doing the work. And so really is an offensive thing to say. It's a generalization. It's not true that all Asian Americans are whiz kids. You know what? They pay special attention. That's something that they value. And so if they excel and do well at it, well, they're just reaping what they have sown, right? Another hasty general claim is, Jen Psaki. She's the press secretary. She's the mouthpiece for the president. And so when she makes a statement like, our view on that reflects the reality of an economy that's rapidly turning back on because of a successful economic strategy. Well, the economy kind of ebb and flows. Whether or not they had a successful economic strategy or not remains to be seen, but that would be a hasty generalization, especially at this point in time. I think this was about 2 months in from the Biden administration. Now, just 10 months in, everything's changed. Unemployment skyrocketed. Minimum wage, workers, we have a supply chain, gas prices are up, we have a lot of economic problems right now. So this statement just, 6 months later is completely false because the statement that was made was hasty. It was too soon. It was too general, not specific enough. Another example of a hasty generalization here is an example of, well, there's another BLM hoax. Well, okay, we need to learn when we're reporting news to let the information come in. So right away, this is considered or pointed at hastily as, oh, here's another fake BLM, a fake story. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But real news has the benefit of time. See, time is a vindicator of truth. And real news shouldn't be so hasty to get the news report out there so fast that they don't have enough information. So when you make hasty generalizations, well, that's a form of a fallacy. We have an example going on right now. I mentioned just a few seconds ago where our supply chain, which means the ships, the trucks, the trains, the way we get products from, other countries like China that get delivered to California, to the port, they then get trucked, all over the state and then get, put on maybe a railroad and goes, all the way to Minnesota. Well, that's our supply chain. And so when we say, well, there's not going to be any Christmas because of the supply chain, you're not going to get any gifts. Well, that's a hasty generalization. Things may be slower, things may be behind. There may not be, 500 of the same item on the shelves, but the truth is we don't know. And so that's a hasty generalization. News does this all the time. They're making predictions based on small proof, right? That's, again, our definition of fraud. Big conclusions, little evidence. So we have to be careful of that. And then finally, we see here an example of Sandman, and, he was accused of being, some kind of racist kid and, attacking a poor, Indian man. And, when the story came out, actually, it was completely reversed. The American Indian was somebody who was actually an activist. He was the person who got in the kid's face, and CNN rushed to report a negative narrative about this teenage boy, which ended up costing them millions of dollars in a settlement because they generalized. The news then was proven to be false, which is proven to be fake. So that's a classic example of generalization.